Hello and happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in to Radio Free Rhinecliff. I'm Norm, your host of Correct Me If I'm Norm, and I'm thrilled. Again, I think maybe I always say that, but I'm really thrilled this time. I was just making believe before to have Gina Walker Fox here joining us in the Nook at the Epicurean in Rhinecliff, New York, USA. Gina, welcome.
Thank you, Norm. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I love your theme music. I love it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
I never thought you were going to have me on. You had to have had a cancellation, right?
I wasn't going to have you on. I was going to just keep pushing it, because you're one of the few people who's like, oh, you should have me on. I'm like, never having her on just to piss her off. Because that's my archetype. I'm the little brother. Mm-hmm. And if you show me which pigtail to pull, I will just pull it over and over again. And so you showed me, but anyway, somebody canceled. And then other people canceled, and then 3 or 4 more people canceled, and somebody got sick.
And then I heard you had to sleep with Norm to be on the show, and I said, okay, that was my goal all along. But apparently that's not true.
No, it's not. You can just sort of like know me and come on. And indeed, we did have a cancellation. Thank you so much for filling in at the last minute.
You're welcome.
You probably dreamed of having months to prepare for this high-pressure radio interview program. So Gina is she's here just pretty much fresh off the boat from a whirlwind trip of the Midwest. You went to like Indiana or Illinois or one of those I states. What was...
I went to my hometown of Keokuk, Iowa, the only Keokuk in the world, named after a Sac Fox Indian chief, Chief Keokuk.
Wait, a what fox?
Sac Fox.
Sac Fox? Is that the tribe name?
Yeah.
Is that short for something? Sac Fox?
No, Sac... SAC is one Indian tribe.
Listen, if you're going to get snitty with me, we'll just cut this off right now.
And then the Fox Indian tribe.
Huh.
And he was chief of both. And he's buried there.
So there were 2 tribes, the Sac and the Fox, and they kind of merged together and settled there in Keokuk.
But locals call it Kilcook.
Kilcook.
Yeah, and in fact, when Max Baer, I think, who's the guy who does Mark Twain?
Beverly Hillbillies?
Oh, maybe you're right. But who's the guy that... Joe Baer. Okay. When he did his Mark Twain thing.
Which I missed, sadly.
See, Mark Twain lived in Keokuk for a while, and his mom's house is there. And his brother, Orion, had a printing press there.
Orion, what a great name. Like Orion?
Yeah, it's Orion, but it's pronounced Orion. Okay. So I told Joe Baer, I said, it's pronounced Keokuk, but locals call it Kilcook. And his brother was named Orion. But I didn't want to tell him in the midway of the show because I didn't want to screw him up.
In the middle of the program.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, that's not... Well,
but I'm actually working on a little project about a book about Mark Twain. And I went out to his libraries, his papers out at the UC Berkeley Library, the Bancroft, and found all of his letters, and he was in love with a girl from Keokuk for a short time, and
Mark
I always
Twain
wanted
was.
That to be me. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, had he met you, Samuel Clemens, I'm sure he would have. So you said you were working on a project about a book about Mark Twain.
Well, I don't want to be kind of a jerk and say I'm writing a book about Mark Twain, but that's kind of what my plan is.
Okay. So the project about the book about Mark Twain, the project part being...
The research.
Starting, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. And that's why you went to this research library.
In the Bancroft at UC Berkeley. My husband's kids live in Berkeley, so it's a nice outing when I go there to visit them. I walk over to the Bancroft and do research. And
how did they happen to have so much Mark Twain stuff? You'd think that it would be in...
He lived in Northern California when he wrote Calaveras Count, the frog of Jumping Frog, whatever that one was.
The short story that everybody read in
and San Francisco. So he was there for quite a bit of time.
I think I knew that, and I forgot that. Mm-hmm. What an amazing guy. He's one of those writers who all the time I'm like, I need to read more Mark Twain. I mean, just an amazing wit. Yeah. And I'm going to share this because it's one of my favorite things. And people said it a lot during the previous presidential administration here in the United States. Would wish sort of the demise of the sitting president, which I didn't find necessarily tasteful. But Mark Twain said, I've never actively wished for someone's demise, but I have read some obituaries with great delight, which is just spectacular.
It is.
Yeah.
That's true.
So how's the research going? You've just sort of begun this.
It's great. It's great.
Do you have an idea what the form is going to be?
I totally do, but I'm not going to tell you.
Well,
because I don't want someone to steal my idea. It's a great idea.
You're not going to tell me. All right. Well, I'd like to thank Gina Walker Fox for being here today. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with another guest who is going to tell me. They're sitting by. So how was the trip? You were gone for a week or something.
I went for my mom's 90th birthday, and it was great. It was a long drive. We stopped we were driving on Interstate 80, which is horrific, just surrounded by semis going 85 miles an hour in all directions. And we were in Ohio, and there was this rectangular, like a loaf of bread, right on the north side of I-80, somewhere in Ohio. And I said, that looks like a burial mound. And Michael said, oh, no, Gina, that's not a burial mound. That's just rock that they couldn't
We don't allow people
through.
to do their spouse's voices on the radio show. So
So I said, no, Michael, I said, this is the middle of planting territory. This is good soil, unlike what we have here in Rhinebeck and Red Hook, where it's just pure rock. I said, this is all dirt all the time. And so I said, Google Ohio Indian burial mounds, and apparently there are 100 of them. And we went to the biggest one, and on the way back we went to a serpent that they made 2000 BC, a tribe called the Adena tribe, and
out there in Ohio.
Which Spike Fresho apparently grew up 20 miles from there, which I hope to hear him on your radio show.
He grew up outside of Columbus. I grew up in Cincinnati.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to this serpent mound?
We probably had some field trip to go there. I probably called in sick that day.
It was spectacular.
Yeah.
And of course, no one's allowed to walk on it. My husband walked all over it. I kept having to tell him, Michael, get down, get down.
But the one big burial mound, there was like a stair.
They had steps, yeah. And that apparently is stone underneath, just like Chichen Itza. But it's more like Chichachina, or what's the tiny little Chichen,
Well, I don't know.
Chichenito is kind of what it was like.
Quiz. Well, welcome home. It seems like it was a good trip. Now, you said it was your mom's 90th birthday, and I remember seeing a picture that you posted on Facebook of your mom, like, holding a gun. It looks like a rifle, guarding her
Biden-Harris sign.
Campaign sign out there in Keokuk.
She had a small one, which was stolen. My house was on a big bluff over the Mississippi River, and you come across from Hamilton, Illinois, and you can look up and see my mom's house.
What's her name?
Wilma. And so when they stole her first sign, the Democratic committee made her a huge sign that you could see from the river, and you could see it from the bridge when you come across, for Biden-Harris.
Right.
So she heard people in the yard the first night the big sign was up, and she let her 3 deranged dogs out and said, go get them, and they chased them away. So then the next day she went out with her gun. She's a great shot, too.
Is she?
She's a really good shot. But she protected that sign, and they have a picture of her with that sign and her gun and her dog at the Lee County Democratic Society.
And what kind of dogs does she have?
All rescues, all deranged. One's a Jack Russell. One's
now, is that a medical designation, deranged?
One's a Boston. They were all rescues, and they're all damaged in various ways.
And did she grow up around Keokuk?
She grew up across the border in Missouri.
Okay.
On farms, and some of those farms are still in my family. My brother has 40 acres.
Right.
That was my grandparents' farm.
Okay.
They grew corn and soybeans and cattle.
And what's being grown on it now?
Same.
Okay.
Same.
Now, Missouri. Now, my dad's from out there. He lived in St. Joseph for a while. He always called it St. Joe, and he always called it Missouri.
It is Missouri, yeah.
It is.
Or misery if you live there.
Missouri. Yeah, and also, let me ask while we're on this, the thing on top of your house that
The roof.
the roof, and a small body of water that's moving down.
Crick.
Yeah, all these things, and it was just so cute. And we used to, of course, we grew up in sort of like Cincinnati and New Jersey and stuff, so nobody said that. So we would love to make fun of Dad when he said these things. But you just said Missouri, so
Well, I'm educated.
Educated.
And
Are you?
I moved away.
When did you move away from Keokuk?
The second I knew where I was. The minute I could go away.
No, we're not moving on beyond that. The second you knew where you were. And so there was a realization like, I'm here. This is not where I should be. What was the change in your perception of your hometown?
I love my hometown, and it's sad to see it come into disarray, but I grew up on the Mississippi River, and like Mark Twain, that calls you, like being here on the Hudson River, that calls you to a bigger world, and there's traffic, and there's trains, and there's boats, and you just are called to go see what's out there.
Because all of these vessels are going somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And when you were a kid, did you get on any of those vessels and go somewhere else? What's downriver?
Oh my God! Okay, my sister went up to college in northern Minnesota, and my mom used to buy us train tickets or bus tickets to go visit, which we would promptly cash in to get the money.
Where was she in college?
Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota.
I was hoping you'd say Bemidji.
Right. No, we were close to Bemidji.
Good word.
So, growing up with my mom is like growing up with Judge Judy. She would catch you at every single thing you ever did. So I would turn in my train ticket or my bus ticket. Then I would hitchhike to northern Minnesota to visit my sister. Then come back, get on the last town before the bus to get back to my town.
Right.
Fort Madison, Iowa, where there was a prison, so it's a good place to hitchhike, right?
Sure.
So
Quality
you'd come
people
home
at the bus station at Fort Madison.
And my mom would say, how is the bus? Or how is the train? And I'd say, oh, it was good. It was really crowded. And, I would say a bunch of shit. And then she would say, well, isn't that funny? Because Rita Knox's cousin's sister saw you hitchhiking north of Fort Madison. And so then you would have to okay,
Knox's
I'm
cousin's
caught.
sister is a big fat liar, Mom. Who are you going to believe?
Mom never believed us.
Yeah.
No, she never believed, and rightly so.
Yeah, it's an interesting parental strategy, and I'm not sure there's a right way or wrong way. But you've got kids. We have 7 or 8 or 9 kids or something. Did you, when they were growing up, did you believe them or?
No,
were you
never.
You were a
and
skeptic?
in fact, even when they were telling the truth, I would accuse them of lying because I knew we always lied.
That's fun for a kid.
We had 6 kids in my family growing up, and then we had a couple of foster kids. There was a friend of mine, maybe 6th grade. Her mom shot her dad to death in a bar. And went to prison, right?
Wait, we're not. What?
But she came to us. So anyway.
Wait.
Her mom went to prison, so Kathy had to go.
For shooting the dad to death in a bar. What was the name of the bar?
I don't know, but my mom showed it to me once in Quincy, Illinois, but I don't remember the name of it.
Right.
So then Kathy
the lucky
went,
spot.
Right. What's that called? Bullseye, maybe it was called.
The bullseye. So anyway,
so
this
Kathy
kid
went to live with her grandma, with her little brother. And the grandma was overwhelmed and couldn't handle her and called the police and said, take her to jail. And she was 11. So the police knew us very well, and one of the police officers was my best friend's dad. So they called my mom and said, we've got Kathy here, and she wants to come live at the Walker's house.
Right.
So my mom says, I'll be right down to get her. So my mom went down, and she lived with us until we graduated from high school, but a couple of years later, she said, "Can my brother Ricky come live with you too?"
Right.
So my mom said, "Sure." So we had 8 kids running around, and it's like someone once told me I had 4 growing up in my household that I had, and someone once said that if you have 2 kids, it's like basketball. You can play man on man.
Right.
But if you have more than that, you have to go to zone defense,
Yes.
and shit gets through. And that's what happened
shit gets real.
Right.
Yeah,
At our house, there was always stuff going on that no adult had any idea was going on. So it was a great
But everybody
time.
came through childhood without blowing themselves up. I'm hoping.
Oh, there was some explosions. Did you know that?
No.
Are you cueing me?
No.
Oh, my
Yeah,
brothers.
no.
Okay, so we lived on the flats of the Mississippi and across the river.
Flats, meaning sort of like elevation 2.
Yeah,
over
yeah,
the level.
exactly.
So the
massive
floods
floods.
flood all
yeah,
the time.
yeah. So across the border in Missouri are all the fireworks stands. So they got flooded one year, and my brothers went down to clean up the flooded fireworks stands. So they were given the option of being paid in cash, which any normal person would do, or being paid in wet fireworks.
I'd just like to say, young boys, really between certain ages,
And these 2 were dumb to
don't
begin with.
count
I
as
have
normal
got-
people. So
So they decided to be paid in wet fireworks. So they came home, put them in the oven, and then went outside
smart.
to play.
I think
so
I saw a Bugs Bunny like that.
Exactly. So my mom and I are in the kitchen, just hanging out. I'm probably doing my schoolwork like
They're
a good
drying
child.
out the-
Right. All of a sudden, the oven goes kaboom! The door blows off the oven. My mom starts screaming, "Get out! Get out!" She thought the gas line was exploding, So we run out of the house, and then my brothers come running down the hill saying, "Oh, I guess it got too hot." My mom was like, "What got too hot?" The fireworks.
We
So
accepted
they had
in lieu
to
of
buy a new stove. Was their punishment? Was they had to buy a new stove?
right, and
They paid for it in wet fireworks.
that's good. God bless them. Wheeler dealers. What are they doing now? These brothers.
My brother's a great brother.
A great.
Yeah, he's one of the best brothers you could ever have. He did a lot of things. He was a welder on the river, on river boats. He was the road manager for Buckwheat Zydeco.
Oh wow.
He, the BBC interviewed him and did a series on him, like Tales from the Road by Roger. He's a storyteller. He's much better than I am.
Roger Walker. Mm-hmm. Well, let me just say, and there's no reason to butter you up because you're already here. It's hard to imagine a better storyteller than you.
Oh, you should hear his.
Really? Well, get him over here. All right, listen, before we go on too far, I just want to say you're back from the road, and if anybody can hear this, Gina brought some potato chips.
Some Sturzing's potato chips from
All right, tell us
Burlington, Iowa.
Tell us about these.
Best ever.
I'm going to eat one and crunch it into the microphone.
Go ahead.
You can talk.
I've eaten my share. Okay, there was a terrible incident. They've been in business since the 30s. But when Michelle Obama was in the White House, you remember her war on trans fats? So they took out the trans fats, and they were inedible. And there was a public outcry for like a year and a half. So they reworked and reworked and reworked. And these are close to how the originals were, but they kind of taste like donuts, someone said, and I thought, oh, that's interesting.
Interesting, and it says right on the front, TRI-SOME, play on trisome, but as you pointed out, it's also trisome, which is a genetic
Defect, but
that
great
causes
marketing, right?
Trisome. Well, these, I don't know what to say except nom nom. I mean, they're just delicious.
Is that for Taffy? That's for you, Taffy.
Yeah. You also brought, this is the tradition here, and correct me if I'm wrong, a cocktail of some sort. Oh, good. And as instructed, you're shaking it in front of the microphone. Thank you. And what is it? Is it like a rice jar? It's in a basmati rice?
It is a basmati rice jar.
Really?
I brought Moscow Mules, Norm, because I'm really mad that the Republicans have taken over the communists as their heroes, you know? And there's no one more progressive or left-wing than me. And I really hate that we're in Putin's back pocket now. But
Well, and in Putin's back pocket, you mean Moscow, Mitch?
yeah, and
Oh yeah, we
don't even want to
discuss
say.
in here.
Cheers, everybody.
Wow, cheers. Well, thank you so much. What goes into a Moscow Mule? Clank, clank, yeah.
Vodka, lime, ginger beer, and seltzer.
Yum. That is super delicious. And thanks
Oh,
for
that is delicious.
Thanks for 12 ounces of it. I'm going to be ripped by the time I'm done. So in addition to the potato chips, which I'm going to keep crunching, you brought this huge round rock thing from the surface of the moon. What the heck is that?
I brought geodes back for all my favorite people, and they're
Can I have one?
Yep, that's for you. They're volcanic gas bubbles that were trapped in the earth at the time of the dinosaurs. And Keokuk, Iowa, if you Google geodes, Keokuk is the epicenter of world-famous geodes. Within 30 miles of Keokuk, Iowa, are the veins of the geodes. And
there's not just 100 or 1,000 of these things. There's millions of geodes.
There's millions of geodes, but you've got to find them.
How did they form?
They were trapped gas bubbles.
Wow.
And they have crystals inside. And Rembrandt, I went to Rembrandt's house in Amsterdam. And he had a geode in his studio. And I went, of course, to touch it and set off the alarm, and all the guards came running. And I don't know if it was a Keokuk geode, but apparently it had to have been, because that's where they all come from.
Really? No place else? They don't come from, Cincinnati or...
No Cincinnati geodes.
Huh. Harumph.
And what's funny is on the airplane, when you bring them through customs, they always get pulled out because it's pitch black. And so I've explained it to TSA agents quite a few times about what they are, because it sets off their alarm, because it doesn't transmit any... radiation can't penetrate it at all.
All you need is a fuse coming out of this round rock, this spherical rock, and it would look just like a big bomb. Well, thank you so much for bringing
You're welcome, Norm.
Geode. And I'm guessing there's a vein of geodes that crosses Keokuk heading north.
They call them mines. They do call them mines. And the Fox River, surprisingly enough, is one of the best places to find them. And after heavy rains, they get washed down from the sides of the river, and you can find them as big as a basketball. We found one time that was so big we couldn't carry it out, so we just left it.
We being you and
me, Michael, my mom, my brother. Yeah, this was recently. 10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm going to keep this whole. I mean, I guess people do crack them open.
You should crack it open. That's the joy. That's the surprise to see what's inside.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm praying there's a
it's hard. You have to have a pipe cutter for the small ones, or you can take a chisel and a hammer and go all the way around and make the plane that you want.
So you sort of need to score
and then
it first.
Score
and
it. Like this one would be. This would be the good.
Really? Now, see, I want to go this way. We're pointing at the geode here for anybody listening at home. And it's a slightly heart-shaped, and where sort of the indentation of the heart is. I would go there, but you think that's not the best place. How come?
I'm not sure. I think, I don't know, Norm. I think it's yours.
Well, I think
you can
this
do
is going to
whatever
lead
you...
to...
And the one secret to finding them is that the lighter they are, the better they are, because they're hollow inside.
Okay,
if
hollow.
The heavier they are, the more they're just plain quartz crystal.
All right. Well,
or calcite, whatever. I don't even know what
our
it is.
first pay-per-view event. Popping the geode open and seeing what's inside. I can't wait. I didn't even think of that. I thought, oh, well, it's a beautiful thing. I'm not going to mess with it.
Some of the collectors will use a saw to saw it, but it's too perfect. It's like, I don't like it that way. I like it more irregular. A little more natural.
Okay. So you got it to out of town as soon as you realized where you were.
Right.
And when I asked about that, you said, "Oh, I love my hometown." But what was it about the place? What was the little light that went on over your head? You're like, "Oh, this is not the place." Was it just the travel, or was there something?
Every city I went to, I loved. I went to school in Davenport, Iowa. I went to college in Minneapolis. And everyone just kept saying, "You need to go to New York." And so I came to New York and fell in love.
Keokuk was not the world beyond.
Right.
And where'd you go to school in Davenport?
Palmer Chiropractic College.
Palmer Chiropractic College.
And then I went to Northwestern Chiropractic College in Minneapolis.
You graduated high school and you went to become a chiropractor.
Okay, that was on one of my hitchhiking trips. I stopped in Davenport to get the last bus to Keokuk, and the guy said, "Oh, it just left. It doesn't come till 7 a.m. in the morning." And I said, "Oh, no, I'm going to be in big trouble. I'm supposed to be home." And he said, "Okay, well, let's call your mom. I have to work all night, so you can stay, and you'll be safe, and let's call your mom and tell her you'll be on the 7 o'clock bus in the morning." So he was studying for his exams, and he was a chiropractic student.
Okay.
So I was maybe like 15, probably 15. So then he said, would I quiz him? Like, would I read his questions and blah, blah, blah. So after a couple hours, he said, "You're smart enough. You could do this." And I thought, okay, good. That's what I'll do. So when I went home the next day, I said, okay, I'm going to go to chiropractic college. Never been to a chiropractor, knew nothing about it.
Wow.
I know.
And back then, I'm going to guess you graduated high school probably in 1989 or something, right?
75, but I graduated a year early.
I'm not going to toss you these softballs.
Yeah.
Graduated
Thanks, Norm.
A year early. And you went out to Davenport, and then you went for advanced chiropractic studies in the
Minneapolis.
Twin
Yep, loved it. Saw Prince quite a few times. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Really? So what year is that you were in Minneapolis studying chiropractic and saw Prince?
77, 78.
Right.
I graduated in 81.
He was just really starting to...
Yeah, he played at a little club downtown.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a blast. So before we get too far from this, I wanted to ask, how far are the other 3 cities that make up the Quad Cities? How far apart are all of them?
Oh, they're all within 10 miles.
So Davenport,
Peoria,
Rock
Island, Moline.
and Bettendorf. Yeah. Peoria is not one of them. I can't believe I'm schooling you on Midwest history. Yeah, Peoria is way out in the middle of Illinois, no?
No, I just drove through it.
It's not
kind of
one
right.
Of the Quad Cities.
It's the Quad Cities Airport is in Peoria.
Is in Peoria? Huh. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah, Mister.
Well, correct me if I'm Norm. There we go. We've identified a theme here. So you drove how long does it take to drive from there to here?
One night on the road, but it was brutal because we
One
had
night?
that. Yeah, one night on the road, 2 full days of driving.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you didn't stop at a Holiday Inn Express or some...
We stopped at the Willowbrook Inn in Waynesburg, Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just you and Michael?
And Jocko the dog.
Jocko the dog. Nice. And what kind of dog is Jocko?
He was a rescue. My niece, he was abandoned in Missouri, in Sedona, Missouri, during a flood and found tied up to a fence post. Oh. And my niece, who's a nurse in Minneapolis, is on this rescue chain thing. So they brought him up to her in Minnesota. And she sent us pictures and she said, "I found the perfect dog for you and Michael." And Michael was like, no, we're not going to have a dog. We're not going to have a dog.
I told you, no doing your spouse's voice here on the show. No, we're not going to have a dog.
And we ended up getting him, and he could not be a better dog. Never bites, never fights. He does steal food. Terrible food thief.
Well,
he's a very, very good dog.
Are. So you didn't bring, notably, you didn't bring your harp playing friend.
Tamam, he couldn't because he's studying. We have a new exchange student, Tamam, who's a Syrian harpist that got a full scholarship to Bard 4 years ago and was ready to come. And Bard reached out to me and said, do you have room for a student? We can give him a full scholarship, but not room and board. I'm a soft touch. I don't know. I'm on the Underground Railroad. I don't know what it is.
Again, like a little directory.
Right.
Like hard touch, no. Medium touch, no. Soft touch, Gina, let's call her.
So he had a full scholarship, and then Trump put the Muslim ban in, and he couldn't come. So for 4 years, he was 21 then, now he's 25. And after 2 years, he had to leave Damascus because of the war.
Right.
And so he went to Oman and taught guitar for 2 years, but he hadn't played the harp in those 2 years. And he was getting so discouraged, and he would WhatsApp me.
Oh, nice.
And I'd just say, just wait for the next election. I think we're going to win the election. And if we win the election, we'll get you here. And sure enough, I reached out to Schumer, Delgado, and Gillibrand. And Gillibrand's got this crackerjack immigration person in her office. And Gillibrand got him here, got him...
wow.
And it's totally, it was on her. And he called me, and I thought I had a month to get his room ready. And he called me and said, this was on a Friday, and he said, I've got a ticket. I'm going to arrive at JFK on Sunday. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not ready. But let's get you here, because I thought the longer he stayed there, you never know what could happen, you know? So I just thought, let's just get him here on this soil. So
Right.
We have a great harpist, if anyone can use a harpist.
Yeah, I've heard. I saw a video of him playing.
He's phenomenal.
It's ridiculous. It's so gorgeous and so beautiful, and not just the sound, but watching somebody do that on this instrument.
I know.
It's just so gorgeous. Yeah.
Thanks, Norm.
Well, you say you weren't ready, but I have this impression of you, and I doubt that I'm wrong. Though, you know, it's the theme of the show, that if like a dozen people showed up at your house, like, you know, right now,
I can feed them.
You'd be like, okay, you'd make do. You'd find a place for them all sleep, and you'd feed them all and give them a gourmet breakfast the next morning. You seem like a total can-do hostess.
Thank you.
And a generous person to boot, as I wrote in the promotion for
Which,
that.
by the way, you do great promos. I always wanted to be on here just to hear what you would say about me. And also, I think we need to give Matt Rosenberg a shout out.
No.
About making this happen. I think this is a pretty spectacular thing.
Yeah, I don't think we
for
need
Rhinecliff. Yeah, and the Epicurean.
Oh,
no place better.
And who are the people at the Epicurean?
Patricia Wind.
Thank you. Since you're doing all this stuff that I usually try to do, but
You're good at it.
One of the things I said I think was inveterate do-gooder, and you are such.
Am not.
Sorry, you are. You know, such a wonderful, caring. You know, it's care in action, and you do all of these things. You do the food kitchen. The food pantry.
Was there this morning. Yeah, but that's only because of all the bad shit I did before. This is just payback for karma.
Would you rather talk about the bad shit? Because we'll stay on this for just a little while longer, and then we'll plumb the depths to get to some of the real bad shit. And where is the food pantry, and who does that serve primarily? Church
of the Messiah here in Rhinebeck. And during COVID, it used to be you needed to be in the Rhinebeck School District, and then we expanded to Hyde Park. But now you can come from anywhere. You can because of COVID. So
and people, because of COVID, they don't get out of their cars.
That's correct. No one can come in. So we're limited. We can only have 10 volunteers inside. We have a phenomenal team of volunteers, probably 40 volunteers, but we're limited because of COVID to how many we can have indoors. Okay. So we pre-package groceries and have them ready, and then we have a list of items for just that week that they can choose from and opt in.
And lots of it's like fresh produce. You post
pictures of this online. We have great produce.
I'm like, I want some of that.
We have the best produce. Rhinebeck Community Garden, Mead Orchards, Migliorelli, all of the local farmers. Patricia has donated tons of stuff.
Right.
Everyone's very, very good about donating. But what we actually can always use the most is money, because there are certain things we have to pay for.
Well, is there a website where people could go to?
I think Rhinebeck Responds has a donor link for the pantry, and I think maybe the Church of Messiah webpage has a donor
But Rhinebeck
link.
Response might have a link for the Church of the Messiah.
Yeah, for the food pantry. Right.
So
I think so.
find that. And you work with Rhinebeck Responds as well.
And they send people to pick up for people. Like if people can't get out,
Right.
they send people over and they will deliver the groceries to people, which is nice.
And what else do? They worked on that sort of new plaza in front of CVS.
Yes, that was exciting, wasn't it?
It is.
The
It's
tables?
wonderful. Yeah,
The
all of a
tables
sudden that
at
space
Rhinebeck?
is getting used all the time.
I know. It's thrilling to see people sitting there.
Yeah. That was a fabulous idea.
know.
What else? You work with the Friends of Rhinebeck Cemetery.
Oh, yeah, I love the cemetery. Love it. Rhinebeck has only the second municipal cemetery with the highest level of green burial, where there's no embalming fluids, you're just put in the ground in a shroud that is natural. I've got mine. I've got my plot.
Yeah,
my kids won't go see it. I said, Jack, I picked a spot that has blackcap berries, so you'll come visit me. I said, you guys want to go see my plot? And they're like, no.
So back to the stat, you said it's the second municipal
Cemetery that has a natural
it's only
green
the
burial.
second in like New York State.
New York
or
State,
okay.
yeah.
And I've been there. It's really kind of gorgeous. Mm-hmm. There
is
aren't
gorgeous.
headstones and stuff, and there's just sort of like mounds.
That sink down after a time,
done, after
and
a
you
time.
can have a stone, but it's flat to the
Right.
ground. It doesn't. It can't stand up.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous.
It is.
So you have a plot for you.
Mm-hmm. And I've got some friends close.
Some friends close
Anyway,
by.
yeah.
And a plot for Michael.
Get them now.
I'm guessing.
While you can. No, Michael's Jewish.
Oh.
And he has a plot down next to my one child in Queens.
Okay.
He's very close to that. So.
Okay. Wow. And so I got to ask, I mean, what do you think happens after you die? Is there heaven and hell, or is a soul? Sort of
Well, I
beyond,
was
or-
raised Catholic again until I realized that it was ridiculous. You want me to tell you how we left the Catholic Church here in Rhinebeck?
Sure.
Okay.
We've got 4 hours.
So I
tonight.
had 4 kids, right? And so I have a they-them child, but at the time she was my daughter. And my 7-year-old daughter came home from catechism and said, there are pictures on the wall that are giving me nightmares. I said, oh no, what are they? I thought it was Jesus with the open heart, which gives everyone nightmares,
Yeah.
right? So she said, well, it's dead babies. I said, get out. So I go drive right over. I am my mom's daughter in many ways. And I drive right over and I get Father George. And I said, okay, what's in my daughter's catechism classroom? And we go up to it, and there are these aborted fetuses.
Oh, God.
So I said, okay, this is totally inappropriate. I said, I understand your position, but it's giving my daughter nightmares, and it's totally inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. And he turns to me and he says, oh, I think I know who you are. You're the one with the gay sticker on your van. I said, yes, that would be
gay
me.
sticker.
Yeah.
Do tell, what was the gay sticker? I hope it was
It was
explicit.
a rainbow, right. It was a
Yeah.
rainbow
Oh,
flag or
rats.
blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, I think we're done here. So then I go home that night.
The gay sticker.
Yeah. I go home that night and I said, okay, we're going to have a vote at dinner about leaving the Catholic Church.
Right.
So we had a vote. My son, who was 5 or 6, who's the big athlete, he wanted to stay because he was dying to play CYO basketball.
Right.
So I said, that's fine, Reed. You can do that. We'll have a foot in both camps. We'll keep you there for the year so you can do CYO basketball.
Okay.
So then they said, so then after that, after that year, Reed said, I'm ready to leave. I don't want to stay there. I said, great. So we all moved to the Church of the Messiah, which is phenomenal, by the way, Episcopal. So then...
it's not super far from Catholic, as I understand it.
No, it's not super far. It's more civilized. And so, and then the one thing...
Great. There goes our Catholic listenership.
Don't get me started on the Catholics. So then, Reed decided to move with us.
That should be your middle name, by the way. Don't get me started. I'm sorry.
Well,
the drink has hit. Now it's just the alcohol talking here.
Well, Truman Capote's land housekeeper always said, "Oh Lord, don't let me commence." And I think that a lot of times. Oh Lord, don't let me commence.
Well, that's the Pinky in the Air version of "Don't get me started."
Yeah. So then, when we decided to leave, and Reed decided to pull out of the Catholic Church.
Back to the gay. That's what I imagined for the gay sticker.
So then
by the way.
Father George called me and said, well, we decided to make an exception for your son to keep him in CYO, even if he's not in the Catholic Church. I said, because he was a really good player. So I said, do you not see the hypocrisy in this? Do I have to point that out to you?
Is this preacher still around?
No.
Okay.
I think he went to prison, actually.
Okay, or not.
Or not.
Yeah.
Have we been sued yet?
No. First time for everything. But you think, I mean, you're not certain.
No, I'm not certain, but there was an incident.
There have been tons of incidents.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't pay attention to all of them, but a lot of them have to do with, like, Catholic priests. And it's a shame. Lots of other religions, the people are allowed to marry, and it's not quite as repressive. And one of the things that you seem to see over and over again, the more repressive it is, the more people find different outlets for
of course,
repressed desires.
And I had no idea that it used to be that Catholic priests could marry. In the 1300s, they were allowed to marry. That was a whole new thing that they just instituted for no good reason.
Right. Huh. I wonder why they did that. I mean, there's a certain poetic purity to like being married to the church. I'm not saying I would want that, but just in terms of like crafting the narrative of this religion, there's a little. It's not nothing.
Well, I've made out in the back of a cab with a Monsignor, heavy duty, and I've sunbathed nude with a nun.
Second base.
Second base.
Either of those.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So, there's no end. But the nun told me that they are taught to masturbate, which I thought was good.
They're taught to masturbate?
Yeah, taught how.
Oh, please tell me there's a pamphlet and that we can get that teaching nuns and monsignors how to masturbate.
The Monsignor didn't need any teaching.
Really? Wow. Well, so you're in the back of the cab with this Monsignor, who shall remain nameless because we're already in hot legal water here on Radio Free Rhinecliff. I mean, on WAMC. I'm Alan Chartok. Sue me. It's my fault.
I'm Pat Bradley.
Okay. How did you happen to be in the back of a taxi cab?
Oh, he was so attractive. And we were friends. And whenever he came to New York, we would go to a football game and we had weekly bets on football. He was a gambler also.
Sure. Betting on which young woman he could get in the back of a taxi cab. He probably won $100 off of that.
Right? Jeez.
All
Norm,
right.
I never thought I was going to be telling that story today.
Well, you've got other stories. You want to tell a more chaste story?
You know what I'm going to tell? I'm going to tell my favorite story about my mom because I just told this at her birthday party, and I'm
Wilma, who just
so
turned
proud
90.
of her.
That's why you were there.
She hated the Catholic Church, too, and she hated school, and she would just skip and ride her horses all day in the field, and then every month or so she'd go to school and ace all the exams, and but she hated school. But when she was 17, she worked at a diner, the Canton Diner, which, by the way, Al Capone's mistress lived in Canton, Missouri, and he built a library and a bridge for Canton.
Nice.
Because that was his getaway spot from Chicago.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, my mom was left in charge of the diner. I thought she was 15, but she corrected me at her party. She was 17. But I had always heard it as 15. But when she was 17, she was left in charge when the guy went on a business trip. And there were Mexican workers there that didn't speak English, but would point to things on the menu. And she could serve them and understand them. But blacks weren't allowed in the diner. They had to be served at the back door.
Wow.
And
what year do you reckon this is?
Well, she was 17. She was born in 31. I'm bad with numbers and ages, but so 40, late 40s, 47, 48.
48, 50.
So she thought, this is ridiculous. We're serving people that don't even speak English, but these people have to go to the back door. So she just told everyone they can come in and sit at the diner and eat.
So she integrated.
She personally integrated the Canton Diner all on her own at 17. And no one messes with my mom, I'll tell you that.
You told me that 4 or 5 times now. Is she listening right now?
So when the owner got back, she wasn't sure how it was going to go. She wasn't sure if she was going to be fired or if he would revert it to segregation.
Right.
But he allowed it to stay, and it stayed segregated until it closed in the 70s.
So in the late 40s, that was pretty
impressive.
Yeah, impressive, progressive. Yeah. Wow. Well, God bless you, Wilma.
I know.
And also, fuck America for that history. It's so
Right?
annoying.
Can we use the F word on?
Yes, I asked numerous times.
Because here's
You've
my
been
other.
holding your tongue this whole
I
time,
have
haven't
been.
you?
My mom heard that I was using the F word on Facebook. Someone tattled on me, right? So she called me and she was mad, and she said, "Gina, you have to stop using the F word."
Wait, this is recently? While Facebook
Last year.
existed?
Last year.
Okay.
And she said, people who use the F word or get tattoos, it just shows low class, and it just shows that you're unintelligent. You can not use the F word, and you cannot get tattoos. And I said, okay, Mom, you don't have to worry. I'm never going to get a tattoo.
I'd just like to say, for people listening, Gina's wearing a low-cut dress right now, and across her chest says, fuck the patriarchy. A huge, is that Old English type? So,
Font.
Yeah.
So I said, Mom, you don't have to worry. I'm never going to get a tattoo because it hurts too fucking much. And she hung up on me.
What a great answer. That's so funny. So Mom seems to clearly have been a major force in molding who you are. You were. What about Dad?
He was super nice. My dad taught me how to throw a baseball, and he taught me how to find morel mushrooms. Oh. And every spring when I go looking for morels, I use it as a time to think about my dad. He was super nice, totally ineffectual, and could not get anything done. But I got my niceness from my dad. My inveterate do-gooder was from my dad.
Oh, you got
But
niceness?
I got all my strength from my mother. So that was the combination.
What a great combination. What was Dad's name?
Dale. He was a twin.
Dale and Wilma. Oh. And what was Dale's brother or sister's name?
Well, he was a twin, and he had a twin named Gail, who was a sheriff in Orange County.
Oh, Gail. A man named Gail.
Gail and Dale.
Because twins can be like brother and sister.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Dale and Gail. And were they identical twins?
They weren't.
Okay.
They were not.
What a blast! Are there other twins in your family?
No, and in fact, I learned in college and in life that if you're the child of a twin, you will have twins, or you're more prone to have twins.
Right.
There were 6 of us. None of us had twins.
You seem disappointed. Did you
I was
have
very
twins?
disappointed.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I love my sisters, and so I had my son Jack, Then I had my daughter, who's a they, them now, that goes by OK.
Okay.
But when OK, so she was my second, and I wanted her to have a sister.
They
so
was your
much.
second.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's why I ended up having two more, both boys. But the last one, Will, my sweetest child,
Your
who, by the
sweetest
way,
child.
he decided he wanted to go to law school this year. He just started. And I thought, yes, God, finally some Fox kid is going to earn some money, right? So then he said, yeah, I want to be an immigration attorney. I'm like, oh, fuck.
That's where the big bucks are, helping
Right,
people.
the big pesos.
Yeah. That's fabulous. So somebody got
Yeah.
sort of the do-gooder gene.
They all did.
Yeah.
Actually. When Jack, but when I was carrying Will, his heartbeat was weird at some point or something. So I actually had to go in for an ultrasound, which I never did with my others. And I took Olivia with me, and I saw right away his penis, it was like obvious. And it's like, fuck. So then we're going out, and I said, Olivia, I think you need to prepare yourself that it might be another boy. And she said, Mom, I saw the picture. You couldn't see the back of his head if there was a ponytail or not. I said,
It's hilarious.
no. And I said, well, I didn't see a ponytail, but I saw something else.
You saw something else. Yeah, we had an ultrasound with the first one, and they said, oh, I said, wow, it's a boy. And they're like, no, that's the umbilical cord.
Oh.
Yeah, ultrasounds. It was kind of fun. Mm-hmm. And
Well, so when Jack was my oldest, and one day at the dinner table, Olivia said, or no, it wasn't, it was after school, and Olivia said, Mom, I'm really worried about Jack. And I thought, oh no, is he getting in trouble at school? Is he taking drugs? She said, I'm really concerned. I think he might be a Republican. I'm like, no. No, we can't have it. So we had a big discussion at the dinner table that night about having to care about other people and look out for other people. And
right.
but it was interesting. I loved having them. I hated when they all grew up. And
so they were raised here, Rhinebeck.
All in Rhinebeck.
In the Episcopal Church there.
Yeah.
And so
After we escaped the Catholic.
yeah, so they're raised with sort of Christian values, and for me, I was raised Christian Methodist. Eventually, I said, yeah, well, I'm not really a Christian. I couldn't subscribe to all that. But the Christian values were really taking care of people and caring for the less fortunate and all that stuff. And I don't personally see how you grow up with that and then get mean-spirited and say,
Right.
no, we're not going to take care of the poor. Did all your kids, have they all grown up to identify as Democrats?
Yes. But, okay, the they, them child,
They, the child.
we never go far enough left for them.
Right.
They are the most radical.
Right. Yeah, I'm almost more liberal than any of my peers, but my daughter Daisy, anyway, makes me feel just moderate. She's just much further out. I'm like, you go, girl. That's awesome.
I think she's a friend of Will's.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My both of my daughters, Daisy and Alice, said, "Oh yeah, Will, he's the best." and they don't really say that about too many people.
Yeah. I have to say I'm inordinately proud of all of them.
That's great.
OK was the one who taught me how to behave at protests. And we went to the first Women's March down in Washington. I took a whole van full. And they also, my first Black Lives Matter was in Union Square in New York City with OK. And OK said, Mom, we're white. We can't be in the front. We have to be in the back. And they also said, stay away from the nihilists and the police. That's where all the trouble starts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. And how, at a protest, do you identify the nihilists?
It's pretty easy.
Really?
It's where the trouble is.
Lay it on me. Okay, schooled you, now you're going to school me.
Well, now it's become that there are fake ones who are pretending to be the nihilists. But in Washington, it was obvious they were all in black. They had their black masks on before anyone had masks.
Right.
And they were the destructive ones, you know? And you just don't want to be caught in that when all you're trying to do is peacefully protest.
Right. That's fabulous. And when's the last protest? What's the last protest you went to?
I had a little one-person protest in Keokuk, Iowa, when I was there for my mom's birthday.
Why am I not surprised? Was there a sign? Is there a picture, a video? I hope you were chanting.
No. The only T-shirt I could bring was my pro Planned Parenthood T-shirt.
Okay.
Oh, here's the cutest thing Will did. My kids grew up in a Planned Parenthood household.
Right.
I volunteer for the Mid-Hudson Valley Planned Parenthood, which has now been subsumed by the Greater New York, which is a fiasco. But we had a box of condoms in the kids' bathroom. And sure enough, they would always get emptied out, and no one was admitting anything. No.
What kind of condoms did you have?
Oh, the Planned Parenthood ones were super cool. I would always grab a bunch at the events, and so they were always really great.
I always had a fish bowl of
condoms. Yeah. So one night at dinner, and Will was about 5. I said, "Okay, does everyone know what condoms are?" And Will's like, "Yeah." I said, "You do?" He said, "Yeah, it's what you put on the table, like ketchup and mustard."
Relish.
Oh, yeah, kind of.
Kinda. Okay, how kinda? That's hilarious.
Because I know.
So
cute.
Did you educate the kids? Like, did you do a demonstration with the banana or something like that? No, really?
No, I opened one and I said, "This is what they're like," and they go on the man's penis and blah, 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 and But I didn't use a banana. I wouldn't waste a banana. Oh, you do it with the peel on?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I'm...
Yeah, you do it with the peel on. That's hilarious. I think that's the soundbite of this whole show. Oh, you do it with the peel on? She said
I never
innocently.
used the banana.
Well, I hope we find out that's the brand name of something. The banana. All right, what else? We're winding
Could be
down.
a sponsor for our show, Norm.
That'd be great. Oh, all of a sudden it's our show. I knew this was going to happen as soon as I invited you. That's why I pushed back about having you. And I was like, Gina's going to steal the show. We'll never have a show again. We've got less than a minute left. What else? Tell me something else. Tell me a story. You introduced Eric Clapton at the Royal Albert Hall.
Yes, before he was an asshole. He became an asshole.
But that was just like 6 months ago.
I know. No, it was a big deal. And I was expecting
amazing.
My oldest child. I know. We had dinner in the basement of the Royal Albert Hall. And
all right, well, listen, this is a perfect
very cool.
segue for me to say something I've never said to any guest on Correct Me If I'm Norm before, but...
I'm already married. I'm sorry, Norm.
Well, then, in that case, will you come back and talk again someday?
I'll have to make up some more stories.
Really? You made up all this stuff? All right.
Thanks, Norm.
Thank you, Gina Walker Fox, for being here. Thank you, Patricia Wind and the Epicurean here in Rhinecliff for hosting. Thank you to Matt Rosenberg for creating this. This has been Correct Me If I'm Norm. Have a great Friday.
Yeah, everybody. Thanks, Norm. Love you.